Welcome to the Alaska Report. This is Senator Mark Begich. This is an opportunity for us to tell you what's going on back here in Washington, D.C. and learn how it connects to all our friends and family back in Alaska. Today we have a special edition, Alaska Report. We're featuring the Yup'ik Eskimo exhibit here at the National Museum of Natural History. The exhibit opened in April and runs through the end of July. My guest is Dr. Igor Krupnik, an ethnologist here at the museum. Welcome, Mr. Krupnik. I appreciate you bringing here and helping us learn a little bit about the Yup'ik people and the exhibit.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Now, the first thing is you have to explain what an ethnologist is. And I'm sure I pronounced it a little bit wrong, but explain what it is so the viewers get a little additional words in their vocabulary.
With pleasure. Actually, I can be also called cultural anthropologist, and that means that I'm a scientist who works with people. I do modern communities. I work with people who live today, with their cultures, with their issues. I'm also curator at this museum for, as we call it, ethnology collections, so that we have archaeology collections and other. And I care for over 20,000 objects from Alaska, about 9,000 objects from Canada, 1,000 objects from Greenland, and some 600 from Siberia. So my field is collections from the Arctic and the North.
So tell me, you mentioned you have 20,000 artifacts. Now, part of it is in this exhibit. And I looked at the name of the exhibit, and I want you to pronounce it because it has many letters in it.
Well, the title of the exhibit was created by the team that produced the exhibit. And the very idea behind the title is to convey the message. So in English, it is the way we generally live. And in the Yup'ik language of Western Alaska, it's called Yuungnaqpiallerput.
So I believe, time for our viewers.
I believe I'm pretty close, Yuungnaqpiallerput.
There we go.
Yeah, I normally work further north, up on St. Lawrence Island, so there's a slightly different Yup'ik language, and they pronounce it slightly differently.
Well, tell me a little bit about the exhibit. You have, of the 20,000 items, about 200 items in this exhibit here. Tell me a little bit about what its purpose here is and where it's also been, because I know we have a little bit of history where it started. So,
well, we have 20,000 Alaskan objects, but this is an exhibit that is made from collections from 13 museums. So our portion is probably maybe like 20% or 30% of what is here. I do recall like 35 objects that are from this museum. So it brings objects from many places, first and foremost from Alaska. It's from Anchorage Museum, from Fairbanks, from the local museum in Bethel, but also from the European museums, from the museum in Berlin that has an outstanding collections of the Yup'ik objects. So the whole idea was actually to bring together the most precious objects of Yup'ik cultural legacy under one roof or within a certain number of walls, so that accompanied by photographs and music and text, this would reproduce the culture as it is.
tell me now, my understanding is the exhibit is trying to focus on the survival of the subarctic and the Bering. So some of the things, and we'll show the viewers later on in the show a little bit of the exhibit, but tell me a little bit of what, if you have about 200 plus items, what do you think is your favorite when you look at all this? And I know when you pick a favorite, then someone else will say, why not? And so what, out of the exhibit of the 200 pieces, what really kind of stuck in your mind about the survival of what it took in the subarctic years and years ago?
I would actually choose another word, ingenuity. To me, this is an exhibit that praises the creativity and ingenuity of people of Alaska and the Yup'ik people in particular. The environment is harsh, let's say from our perspective, but it is the land where and sea where people live and hunt and used to live and hunt for generations and millennia. So to them it's not harsh, and to them it's not survival. It is, as they put it in the exhibit, the way we genuinely live.
Right, the day-to-day life.
The day-to-day life.
Our life is driving in a car somewhere, picking up the bus. Theirs was a little different.
Exactly. So the message is to show to the world outside Alaska and outside these villages that we genuinely live with creativity and ingenuity. We know things that you guys probably do not know. We have objects and we know how to use them that you don't know how to use them. We can do a boat out of a sea mammal skin. We can do a raincoat out of guts of seals that we kill. We can use wood, we can use grass, we can use fish skin. We know the materials, we know how this material behave under minus 40 or plus 40, so the temperatures that you don't have in the lower 48 in that kind of combination. So this is, to me and to people who produced the exhibit, the team, the curator, Dr. Yuungnaqpiallerput, this is the glory of the Yup'ik creativity and ingenuity in this environment.
How long did it take to put this exhibit together? I know there's always kind of a pre-planning because you just can't go down to the storehouse, pick out the items, say put this up today. So what does it take to put on such an exhibit here?
We are the last stop. The exhibit process was actually started in Alaska, so we are acting as a host museum for that exhibit created in partnership between anthropologists and Yuungnaqpiallerput, a team of elders and experts from the Bethel Museum.
If I can interrupt you there for a second. So elders
Oh yes.
participated.
Oh yes.
Very important part of
Oh
it.
yes. At every single step.
Very good. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but
Yes,
that's a very good.
that's
very
fine. At
important.
every single step, and when we walk around, I'll show to you specific places where elders' advice or elders' insistence help change how the exhibit looks like, how it sounds, and what is its message. So it was a partnership first and foremost among people who live in Bethel and in Anchorage. The Anchorage Museum put its might to back up the exhibit. It was first opened up preliminary in Bethel in a small local Yup'ik museum. It was a full opening in Anchorage where it was on display for many months. You should remember that.
I was the mayor back then.
Yes. So then it moved to Fairbanks at the Museum of the North. It was there up in Fairbanks. And then it was down in Juneau. And now this is the last stop for this exhibit here. So if you take the time, what we call the tour, with 4 venues, that's probably like 3 years, plus at least 2 or 3 years that it took to assemble the exhibit, get all the objects, write the script. If you look around, or when we look around, almost everything which is in this exhibit is written into languages, in English and in Yup'ik. So this is a very unique exhibit in this regard, and particularly for this museum in the nation's capital.
Yes.
Every sound bite that is here is in Yup'ik. There is not a single word of English which is transmitted over the many displays and screens. That was a very special message that Alaska brought down here. We are a strong and culturally viable people. We want our culture, we want our words, our music to be heard and respected in Washington, D.C.
See, I think it's interesting, you know, my wife just recently put together was part of a field trip for our son, who's 7.5 over here at one of the schools, and they came to the exhibit, so she wanted to participate. And it was really exciting because here we are in Washington, D.C., but we were able to share Alaska culture, and my wife was able to participate with my son in a field trip with his school class. I'm assuming you have classes and other kind of tours that are coming through here, just kind of learning a little bit, as well as not just the, I call it the everyday visitor that comes to Washington, but you have some tour groups.
Yes.
Kids that are coming through here, which
Yes.
is very exciting, I bet.
We have tours and we have guided tours, and I have recently given a tour to students from the George Washington University.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a group of Russian museum curators and directors whom I toured through this exhibit. What is even more kind of exciting is that this is a two-way street, because at the very same time we are talking here and we are having Alaskan exhibit here in Washington, D.C. In Anchorage at this very time,
Yep.
there is an opening of a big Smithsonian exhibit in the new building specially constructed for the new Anchorage Museum
Yes.
to host our exhibit of Alaskan objects to be on display in Alaska for at least 7 years, probably more. So
Wow.
this is a two-way street. We are hosting your exhibit. You up in Anchorage are hosting our exhibit. Yeah, you have built a special museum for
very
us.
nice piece,
We have
yeah.
built a special hall for this exhibit.
Yes.
So this is not very often happening when the two museums and two places, Alaska and Washington D.C.,
Right.
cooperate as a two-way street.
It's very exciting. I have walked through before it was finished, the new museum in Anchorage, and the facility that they have constructed to house many of the artifacts, as you have mentioned, for the next 7 years is high-tech, very unique in the sense of how they've put the displays in. And the same thing they have, I thought it was very unique, they have a place where elders from the respective villages could look at some of these artifacts in a special way so they can connect with them versus maybe you and I that might walk through and see them in the cases. I think is a very unique exhibit, and for the Smithsonian, this was one thing we talked about when I was mayor, how important the museum expansion was, but the Smithsonian connection where you can bring literally Washington D.C.'s great collections to Alaska, in our case Anchorage, and it's a very exciting piece. So are you planning at any point to go up there once it's all done?
Oh,
in the next 7 years.
I certainly will, yeah. And you're absolutely right, Senator. That is a pioneer exhibit to every party participating. It's a pioneer exhibit for Anchorage because it's so big that it required to build actually a new museum for them. It's a pioneer thing for us because we gave to Alaska on the long loan the largest collection of the best objects that we have.
Wow.
This is more than 700 best objects from the two Smithsonian museums, ours, National Museum of Natural History, and the National Museum of the American Indian. It was the pioneer thing for the exhibit team, chaired by our Anchorage director, Dr. Aaron Crowell, to make this design when you literally can put some objects out of the exhibit cases, which has never been done,
Right.
take them to the special classroom,
Right.
and invite elders and artists and students to look at those objects, not through the glass.
But physically,
Physically,
right there.
yeah.
Yeah.
We don't think that every object will be always touched, and
Right.
yeah, and that requires, because the objects are very old.
Right.
Some of the objects are 120, 130 years old. They normally don't live that long.
Right.
The objects in the natural life, they live 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
We have extended their lifespan 5 times.
It's amazing.
It's
I'll tell you, it's what's so unique about it, and we're going to take a break here in a second, but what's amazing is that classroom is right there in the museum, which I think is such a unique situation where usually the classrooms are separated out or they're down in the basement, I would say, in the museums. So this is an opportunity for people to interact with it. We're going to take a short break here, Doctor, and I'll tell you, it's going to be exciting as we walk around here, and I know you have a great desire to show us and show Alaskans. So we're going to take a short break here, and we'll be right back.
We will. Thank you.
Two out of 3 people with diabetes die of heart attack or stroke. That was his wake-up call. This is yours. Ask your healthcare provider how you can lower the risk. To learn more, go to diabetesactnow.org.
Welcome back to the last report. First, let me thank Dr. Krupnik for being here today. We're here at the National Museum of Natural History, the Smithsonian, and we are here at the Yup'ik Eskimo exhibit, which will be here through July. And we had a great beginning here, talking a little bit about the importance of the exhibit, but we want to show you a little bit about the exhibit so you get a feel of what's here. And this first one, which is, and I want you, if you could, Doctor, we talked a little bit on the break about talking about the uniqueness, their ingenuity. And here they had a mode of transportation. They never wasted anything. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And tell us how they did these really incredible pieces of work in the sense not only of how it was used, but what they used to make it possible for them to move through. And this is a kayak? Or?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about it.
This is actually not only the kayak itself, but this is a piece of the whole combination of winter equipment for a hunter who goes on ice. And at the backdrop, you can see the photograph, which is actually an old slide from the Smithsonian collection.
Is that like a sail? Is that what I'm seeing there?
It's a mat, it's a windbreak.
There we go.
So you can see how well equipped those people are to go on ice in the harsh weather, and what really they need, because the saying is that a good hunter is not the one who brings game every day, is the one who comes home every day.
Survives
And comes home to its family every day so that he can go next morning and bring the game.
What's the material? What is this?
The material is processed skin of a birded seal. So this is another piece of technology that people had to master so that they can do those very sophisticated kayaks. As you can see, there are several pieces of skin, so normally it's either two seals or often three. Everything is banded naturally. There are no nails. There is no iron.
I know you're looking at this. It's not like our kayaks today. You know, it's metal or it's wood or plastic. And here, this is a skin that's sewn together with probably, again, something they don't just go down to the store and buy. Is that a fair statement?
True. And again, if you see the whole case, which probably you cannot see from here, this is the equipment. You have the gutskin parka that the hunter takes on. There are sealskin boots, and there are sealskin pants, snowshoes. This is all heavy winter equipment for someone who has to be in this kayak sitting in a position which is not very comfortable.
Not very comfortable.
So some people who are not adjusted to this.
Right.
For hours and hours, you have to be prepared to go on ice any moment. You have to be prepared to harpoon and kill and retrieve
all within one motion.
In this very shaky, you know, this is a kayak. This is a boat that is not very easy to run. So to me and to many people, and particularly to the Yup'ik people, this is indeed like a pivotal thing of a combination of many technological inventions.
Well,
how you do this.
Let's look at, I know once you're in the kayak, you got to have special tools, as not only in and out. So let's look at an exhibit that's over here that has some tools that they're utilizing, not only when they're hunting, but also afterwards. But this is a very unique, not only is it important to note, again, I'll let you describe it, but also the effort they took to design and put their signature, in essence, on the harpoons and the pieces that they use. They weren't just functional, they were also really pieces of art. Is that a fair statement? Tell us a little bit about this exhibit here.
They are both pieces of art, but they're also pieces of very sophisticated technology. And I would like the viewers and the visitors of this museum to be aware that this is not only the beauty of the heavily ornamented and decorated objects that are seen here, the spirituality, but there is also a lot of technological thinking going into this, because if or when you hunt for a seal, the main point is not to kill the seal, but to retrieve it when it's harpooned. So the piece on top and also the piece in the middle, the one on top is coming from the University of California Museum in Berkeley. The lower piece is ours, from our collection by Edward Nelson from 1880s. It has already very heavily shrunk, but originally it was a float. It was a seal float. So what happens when people use this harpoon, and that was one of the brightest technological inventions that people made about 3,000 years ago.
It's amazing when you think about it.
We called it toggle head harpoon. That's harpoon that takes off the shaft when it hits the animal, and then it has the line, and to the line there is a float attached, so that the animal normally, when it is hit with the harpoon, it sinks.
Right, but this kept it up.
But the float keeps it up.
It is amazing.
It shows to you where the animal is. It weakens the animal. So without the float and without the toggle head harpoon, all you can do is just to come and kill, which is not very often a choice.
You know what's interesting, we're going to go see a couple more exhibits here, but just to close on this, what I think a lot of people think you just throw the harpoon and that's it, but there's a lot behind this. And again, the exhibits explain that and show us the value. Well, let's go on to a couple more exhibits I know you have here. Dr. Krupnik, what do we have here? This is, looks like a very unique piece. And why don't you get a little closer and tell us what this is?
Well, this is a fish skin parka, which is called kaspirlok, if I pronounce it correctly. Kaspik is the word for the
Yes.
parka. Yeah. So what is critical here is that it is made of a fish skin.
All fish skin.
All fish skin. You never
Again,
think.
nothing is wasted. Let me ask you also, throughout this whole exhibit, you have this written out in both languages.
Both things.
That was very powerful.
That was a deliberate decision. I told you earlier that elders were very important in framing certain things for the exhibit. One was that all the words have to be in two languages, all the words in writing, and all the words heard in the exhibit have to be in Yup'ik.
And the goal was, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I have a sense with all my work that I've done with elders, they want you to experience
Yes.
their culture.
Yes.
And it's not about just seeing something, it's about understanding the words and how it all connects.
Exactly.
So this is, and it is amazing, you know, there is some companies now starting to produce salmon skin products. It was something that we're now discovering, but really centuries ago, it was already there.
It was already there. It was used for boots. It was used for mittens. We have both boots and mittens here for parkas. Now imagine the technology and the knowledge you have to use in order to produce something that durable
Right.
out of a fish skin, and not only to produce it for one season, but to keep it alive and warm and sturdy for 2-3 years.
That's the unique part. It stays and it's durable.
Stays.
Let me ask you a question over here. Now, this is another exhibit, and if you could kind of tell us what, you know, when I was walking through here, I first looked at these, I wasn't sure what they were.
Yeah.
But this looks like something of high use and also fun.
It's a fun and fine story, and Anne Finn-Priordan, the curator of the exhibit, told us at the opening that these pieces are from the Berlin Ethnological Museum, and nobody from Berlin, and nobody there in Berlin had any idea what these are for. And it said, well, you know, these decorated puffins, they mean something. And then when the elders came to the museum, and oh, these are skates, you know, ice skates. We used this when we were kids.
So some of the elders helped educate the folks that were here trying to understand what were these all about.
This is now a common practice, which is bringing elders to the museums, help us understand the objects, give us additional knowledge on the objects, tell us how the objects were used, demonstrate, make the old things to show how the things were worn, how the wood was bent,
So
and how the skates.
living history, literally.
History. Yeah.
Well, this is an exciting, obviously, when we're from Alaska, we know exactly what those are and what those are, but this, I think, is a new piece that a lot of Alaskans will
This
find.
is an absolutely stunning piece of cultural legacy.
Very good. Well, we have a couple more quick displays, so let's walk over there and see what those are about. Dr. Krupnik, this is something that, again, Alaskans are very familiar with, but tell us a little bit about what this is and what the purpose of what this item was for.
This entire section is the story of fishing. So as you can see, this is a fish trap, and up there is a fishing scoop, a huge net kind of
I needed that last time I was fishing.
Yes. And there is a small scoop here for, you know, scooping ice from the fish hole.
Ah.
What is important here is that museums have old things. They're bulky and they're fragile.
Yes.
We do have fish traps, but our fish traps cannot travel anywhere because they are 120, 30 years old.
Very fragile, very brittle.
Very fragile, and as I said, they are bulky. So what is important for sharing culture, for putting exhibits on tour, is that we invite and encourage people of today to do this type of things which are replica of the old objects. You don't have every time to bring a 130-year-old Smithsonian piece to Sitka or to Bethel or to Fairbanks, even to Anchorage, when you have dozens and hundreds of very skilled people who can do this in place.
And give the same feeling of what the purpose is and how it fit in to all the culture.
Yes.
Which is great.
So rather than just watching the Smithsonian piece, build a new fish trap.
Build a new one, live it.
Live it.
Well, let's go ahead, and we have one more, I think, very interesting display on a mask. We'll go over there. This is an unbelievable, I have to tell you, my wife and I, we collect masks, and this is an unbelievable piece. And I first have to pause for a second. I have done some of the Yup'ik dancing, so I've been engaged. Usually they invite the audience, but the masks that they produce are unbelievable. So tell us what's this, a little bit about this.
This is one of the masterpieces of our collection. It was collected by Edward Nelson, one of the first Smithsonian collector up in this area. It dates from the late 1870s. It's called the Mask of Yuungnaq, which is the spirit, the evil spirit or the spirit that helps the shaman. That mask has undergone several treatments in this museum, because
Is that to preserve it?
Preserve it. You know, you can see that the feathers have been restored, because many pieces do not live that long.
Right.
The feathers fade. The reindeer or caribou hair fell off. The colors, you know, they languish, and so it is very important to keep the objects in its beauty. What is important even more is to get people's knowledge on what these objects mean, besides that's being a mask. And Nelson or other early collectors, they just put a mask.
Yeah, they put masks
collected here and there. So when you go to the early record, there is not much you can see. And that's why bringing the elders to the museums is so important today. Well, this tradition is still viable and active, and there are experts. They can tell you what is exact.
You know, it's interesting. I know there'll be a lot of Alaskans watching, and there'll be, because this show, the Alaska Report, shows all around the state, especially in rural Alaska, that hopefully we'll have some elders who might see artifacts like this or other things and say, I know something about it, and they should feel free to let us know and make sure we pass that on. Is that a fair?
Yes.
Because that's the living history that we can capture now, because a moment in time. Doctor, I want to thank you very much for walking us through this incredible display, and also the display that's in Anchorage, the sister display, you might say.
Yes, indeed.
Many of these artifacts have not been seen by anybody except people who are studying them and researching them. So again, Doctor, thank you. Thank you for opening up the beautiful museum here. Thank you for all of you joining us on the Alaska Report. Hopefully we brought you something a little different than us just sitting at a table talking, but something literally history in the making. Thank you very much for joining us today.